date right, 20th of July, but so yes, that's all good. Apologies, we've had an apology from Cheryl. Is that right?
Yes, Cheryl.
Yeah. And oh, sorry, of course. Okay, yeah.
Oh.
So we'll open the meeting with Hauraki here, thank you.
E ngā tōho o mātou atua o te rangi o te whenua. E ana takina i a mātou i ngā take e whiriwhiri ai i nei wā. I raro anō i te aro aranganui ki runga a Papatūānuku i takato nei. Whakamaua ki a Tina, haumi e tai.
Tai ki e.
Apologies, we've had an apology from Puru. Had a Precinct strike, so she's trying to stay home, which was still responsible. So thank you, Gerald. That's great.
I'll move that apology. Yep.
Second.
Thank you. So mover Robin, second to read. For those apologies. No other apologies, please. Public forum. Mike. Ryan, how are you, Mike? Number 12.
Morning, everybody.
Nice for you to come and speak to us.
Yeah.
It's just on spur of the moment, really. I know, as you know, the Lions are disbanding unfortunately this month, and but we have managed to put another project in place before we finish. And despite it's in the Valley profile today, that we put in 3 table tennis tables with the funds that we have left into an area, well, the COVID shop, as I call it, in the mall.
Oh.
And we've now got 3 high quality tables in there. And we had a grand opening 2 Thursdays ago. And that would involve I organised with 2 top players to come down from Auckland. They gave a demonstration. I organised for 4 schools to come, and they gave a demonstration to 26 primary children. And sorry, 24. And then they went on after the demonstration, they did some coaching, and then they went on to perform at the high school as well. They did a demonstration there, and they involved classes of children come and participate at the high school. The reason I'm here really is not it's just well, I'm telling you what we're doing, but of course it's nothing comes without problems. The school, the space is being provided by a cultural centre. And the manager there, John, he's been really helpful, and he's given us the space for free, but it's subject to being let as a shop. Now, I've been in there several times since we went in, and I'm seeing lots of people take part. We've also got in there a community piano, which we organised before the table tennis, and that is that was dominated by Sharon Clark, who's a music teacher at the high school, and she a piano teacher, and she donated piano. We got it designed by a local artist. I mean, covered it in plastic and made it a really nice piece of work. Rebecca Coggins, she was the artist involved, and she spent many hours providing getting a really good design for it. And we are so we've got that facility in the we put it originally to the right hand side of Lincroft, where you travel down towards where anyway, that's on. But that was well, this is where it starts to get interesting for me, is the fact that on several occasions the artist went to have a look at it and see how it was being used. She was really pleased with it. But then on a couple of occasions, she went there and it'd been taped up. The front of it had been taped up, and that was, I mean, to me, I was, my head went, "Ooh, I know who's done, I've got my suspicions who's done that." And then I got to hear from John that some of the shopkeepers weren't happy with it because it was tinkering away, and it was, and other people reported that, you know, they sit out there and have their lunch, and then, you know, there's some kids come up and play, and bang away at it, as they do. This is what kids do when you first learn an instrument. You just play, you make a lot of noise, and that noise gradually becomes, you know, it's the start of learning how to play an instrument. I've just taken up the clarinet and the saxophone for the last couple of years, and the noise that comes out of me is just terrible sometimes, but it's gradually getting better. So I'm really, you know, the attitude towards an instrument, it being in a public place, is, it has to be, you know, for me, really, it's got to be a learning experience. It's got to be, you know, people have got to be willing to take the rough with the smooth, because there are some really good players, and they've gone in there, they've gone, you know, to the piano and played really well, and that's what's been the designer. She's been very pleased to hear it. Now it's suddenly it was moved into where the table tennis tables have been put, and it was put against the wall as you just went and go next to the coin map shop. So I went in there and I was playing, and then the owner of the coin shop, he came in and complained to me. I was playing very slightly, very gently, nicely, and he came shouting at me, and I was really surprised. You know, I couldn't believe it. And so and he wanted it moved, and
I can just remind you, good time.
yeah, sorry. And so anyway, yeah. So it's now been moved again away from a wall, and away from his wall, and we've had some damage go. We had a group of kids go in there and they damaged it. They damaged not the piano, but they damaged the wall at the back of the shop. But that's been now locked off again. And what I'm really trying to say to you is that this is a wonderful opportunity, a wonderful thing I hope we put in place, and it is really being used well, and there are people going in there and playing this piano who are really, from all ages. I sat and watched a 6-year-old, and he played beautifully. I couldn't believe how his microphone was. And so I want to see if we can organise somehow to keep this thing going. It's a space that is, you know, is ideally situated, and it is attracting a lot of attention. And I just wondered if there's any way we can perhaps get the management on. He's on board, but I want to keep him on board and say, well, look, you know, could the community board put some money into keeping that space for the community? Like, you know, he said to me, I said, how much is it? You can't charge, you know, to rent this out. He said, well, probably $40,000 a year. And I thought, well, that's, you know, well, you know, but what if we could put in maybe 10,000, then we could say, you know, we want to keep the space going.
Okay.
And it's got no rent is better than none. Some rent is better than no rent.
So that's my might be a concern. I mean, it's a shame that something like that's not embraced by the centre.
Yeah, well, it is right here.
And making a call on the board or something like that is not quite, doesn't sit quite right. In the sense that, you know, it really, you know, the centre should be embracing those sort of activities within their public area, like their main area. So that's a shame.
Yeah, the manager is livid, but he's trying to appease everybody.
Yes.
Yes, but it's still.
I know.
Their backyard. So, yep, does anyone want any points of clarification or aspects they'd like to answer to in relationship to that? Yes.
Yeah, I was down there Monday night. We were setting the stage up for the talent quest. And yeah, I saw people playing in there. So that was playing table tennis in there. It's cool to see. And I think it's called the Lion's Den,
Yeah. I thought it was right.
which is nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right, move on.
That was supposed to be cool.
It's supposed to be quick. You asked if there's at the last thing, but
We're supposed to only ask questions.
That was so late. Well, you're all welcome to go there and play, of course. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Okay, so the thing.
Yeah, I mean, I just hope you can think about helping us to keep it going. Yeah, at some point. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Bye.
You excuse me if I move on, right?
Thanks, Jen. Oh, yeah. I'm happy to move the public forum.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Just Ellie.
This is from Thames Museum.
Oh, yes.
So email us and I'll read it out. On behalf of us here, I'd like to thank the gardeners for the enormous effort they made to get our gardens looking so beautiful for the opening of our new gallery on the 2nd of July. Can you please register this in the file for the gardeners and the community board? Namaki Carolyn.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Okay, nice.
Yeah,
So we have, we'll pass it on to the gardeners.
fantastic.
So we have a mover and a second for that.
yes, yeah.
Ellie.
We've got that, Sally and Robert. Any item not on the agenda? I would like to see on the agenda, no. We're good. Conflicts of interest?
Yes, I've got one for 3.2. I'm employed by that organisation.
Yes, thank you. We did this.
What we need to do is
I would ask mover and second for that.
the photo item.
Oh, okay, everybody else. The item not on the agenda is the case item.
All right.
It's additional or new information that could be attached to 3.1. To 5.2.
Yeah, it'll be 5.3.
5.3, we'll move it to 5.3.
I'll move that.
Everyone in favour of that? Thanks.
Second that.
Thanks.
Get you to it. It'll be quick around here. Just move. And we've just accepted the late item of the business.
All those in favour of that?
Aye.
You. Now, conflict of interest, thank you, Sally. Better.
Conflict for 3.2.
Any other conflict of interest? Mover and second. Minutes for confirmation, I'll take those as being read. And that is arriving from those minutes.
Standard.
I'll move.
I can second that.
Second. Those in favour?
So we've lost our camera, but the sound's still around. Is that what I'm picking up?
Yes, I'll just triple check that it's working now.
Okay.
The sound is not great for those of us at home. It's very muddy and it's quite hard to hear what people are saying, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Yep.
But thank you for trying. I know it's a trying issue, but anyway, as you were.
We're going to have a recess for about 3 or 4 minutes to close out.
Okay,
So hang fire and have a coffee. We'll be back in a few minutes. Thank you.
How can that be?
Awesome. Thanks very much. So item 2.1. There's a request to bring forward 2023-24 Thames Airfield renewals budget into the 22-23 financial year. Thank you, Larissa.
Right, I take that as read. Any questions?
So previous things that we've talked about at the airfield have been around drainage and getting rid of water.
Yeah.
And this is
Yes.
adding water, but it's all going to be okay.
Yeah, because we have too much water in winter and not enough in summer.
Right.
So so we wouldn't be irrigating at all during winter strictly for summer because it just dies off. And like we looked at the idea of like just regrassing it and redoing it, but then that is just something that you end up doing every few years because grass won't grow without water. So we went for a more permanent solution.
No, that's excellent. Peter, have you got any comments you'd like to make?
Yeah, Larissa, just a question. Who is giving us the advice that this is a good solution?
TIC Contracting, who are irrigation and turf specialists.
Right, and they've been across the issues with the airfield top for quite some time. Is that right?
Yeah. I've been dealing with them for a while. So they've been there and they've met with the airfield users and they're working very much hand in glove with them through this project.
Excellent, thank you.
Larissa, in terms of taking the budget out of the following year and bringing it back to this year, how does that leave the budget for next year? In terms of what kind of part of this.
Bringing forward that this amount still leaves us budget next year for anything that needs to be done. But what we decided with the users is that if we don't have good functioning runways, then really we don't have an airfield at all. So
right, it doesn't reduce the budget for next year.
It does reduce the budget, but it was very much their priority.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
So are there any things for next year that you see that might be a little bit of a red herring as well, but in terms of making all that budget?
No, because basically if we didn't bring the budget forward, I would simply be spending that budget on the same thing next year. It's just bringing it forward means I can get it completed and we can start using the irrigation system when summer comes around. So, and obviously, you know how the cost of materials is these days, the cost of doing the project will go up by the time next year comes around. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Just around the 0.75, including GST per ratepayer. So just thinking about that and other things that we are doing as well, other projects that are sort of floating around that are going to have that rates increase for the ratepayer. Yeah, sorry, I'm just thinking about it. I was just thinking, yeah, is 0.75 like 75 cents per ratepayer? It's in Thames only, is it?
Yes, yeah, because it's a locally funded.
Yeah, thank you.
And presumably that 0.7, that 75 cents won't then be on the thing the following year because it would already have.
Yeah.
Because we won't be spending that year. Is that right?
Well, maybe. I'm just thinking about
Yeah.
that. I probably shouldn't have talked about that, but it being added to others.
All right. Well, then, so any other points of clarification or information you'd like from Larissa regarding this item at this point? Everyone seems to be happy. Peter, are you happy there now?
Yep, I'm happy to move that.
Very good. You moved it. Thank you. The seconder.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, now thanks, Larissa. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
That's what I mean.
All those in favour.
Start to
Keep
get.
forgetting.
Aye.
But
Aye.
add it to others. You think about your.
Did you vote?
Strategy.
Yes, I love 75 cents, but when you're adding it.
3.1 reserve reclassification. Privilege of Maine. Nicole, we've got you offline, and if you could just explain as well why this was required, you know, in terms of this court bringing about the use of the community hall and activities with the reserve reclassification. So everyone understands. If they don't already, so thank you.
Oh, sorry, do you want me to explain what's happened? This is actually,
Not so much to what happened, everyone's sort of aware of that, I think, but just more why.
well, why? Oh, it just was pretty much because we couldn't enter a lease with either the kindy, formally enter a lease with either the kindy or the community hall without it being reclassified as a local purpose reserve. Under a recreation reserve, we couldn't actually formally enter into a lease with those two parties. So this is just tidying up a bit of an area that should have probably been tidied up years ago. But yeah, it's just a process. And this is the final step in that process to request council to approve that we just go ahead and, formally change the classification.
Okay, thanks, Nicole. Are there any points of clarification or information you'd like? Yes, Imani.
I read through the letter from the Department of Conservation several times, and I'm still really confused about it. But all the legal words and things in there, but it sounds like they're happy. So I guess that's good. I mean, it seemed to take them a few months to come up with a 2-page letter, but I guess that's standard.
That's quick.
That's excellent. No other staff wish to make any comments. You're all right. Yeah.
Can I just ask?
Yes, Peter. Yes.
Yeah. Nicole, in your report, you mentioned that an email has been sent to Ngāti Tamatera on the 20th of May outlining the proposal and inviting feedback.
That's right, yes.
Did you receive any feedback?
No, I didn't receive any feedback. I even went to Frank Thorne just to further, consult, and he didn't receive any feedback either.
Right.
So, because we don't receive feedback, is it acceptable to assume that therefore that's approval?
I assumed that if they didn't approve, they would have definitely given us some feedback and let us know.
Okay.
So as what Nicole said, the use of the space, the reserve is not changing. All that's changing is that we are aligning the use of the kindy space, which is the early childhood education, to a classification that meets that use. And the hall also, because a lot of community activities happen within that hall, including
Weddings,
but also it's a water space for Te Puru and the tennis post area. And so all Nicole's saying is that we're just aligning the use of the space with the correct classification.
Yeah, yes, I get that, and I agree with that, and I think it absolutely makes sense. I guess what I'm concerned about is when we do things where it's, I suppose, in the name of consultation, and we don't get any response, then we just assume that it's it's acceptable. And I just wonder at a higher level, in fact, whether in fact we should be rethinking the way we do that. I don't have any objection to what what we're seeking to do here. It's a broader question for me that comes out of a statement like we've consulted with them and we haven't heard from them, so therefore it's all okay.
Yeah.
Point made. I'll pass on.
Mr. Chairman, if I can come in terms of these Reserves Act matters, if a party does not submit or object, they're statutorily deemed to have agreed to the proposal.
Thank you for that, John.
That's fine, that clarifies that. And Rose, you wanted to make a.
Yeah, I was just going to add that the communication with Ngāti Tamata it's likely that will increase in the next few months. We're quickly going to start with engaging with them on a more regular basis than we have been. And so something like this would be raised and we get a comment. Yeah.
Okay, that's excellent. I think everybody. Is there any further comments from anybody? No. Well, that's great. You have a suggested resolution, but I'm a mover and seconder for that resolution.
I'll move it.
Cherie, second. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Thanks, Nicole.
No worries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you'll be pleased to have that one ticked off.
It'll be good to get it sorted, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
What a keep my candy open.
3.2 is a new lease for child abuse prevention services, CAPS, Hauraki, Incorporated. So we'll all turn to that item. That's page 24 of your agenda. Are there any further comments that you'd like to make? I mean, it looks pretty straightforward. We'll take it as being read.
Yeah.
Second. I'll second it.
Yep.
Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? None against. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Now, 4.1. Road naming policy and procedure 2022. Bruce. Welcome, Bruce. How are you?
Good thanks, Trent.
Thank you. Yeah. Welcome.
The policy there, tēnā koutou katoa, Thames Community Board, and the road naming policy you have in front of you is a result of a request from council to review the road naming procedure that is currently used by the development team for naming of roads. This policy in front of you has been had input from various staff members to finally get it on the board's order paper, and it's consistent with the Australia New Zealand standard for rural and urban road naming. The policy's been to the other 4 community boards, and they have provided one particular comment that I'll bring to your attention under the selection criteria that's in the road naming procedure. That is, I'm not sure what page it's on yours, but if you scroll down to road naming procedure, and look at selection criteria. Oh, sorry?
Page 2 of your report, or page 29 of our agenda.
33.
Oh, okay.
Okay. The other boards have had raised concerns with the words at the end of the second sentence that currently reads appropriate names should consider the following criteria in order of priority. They have resolved to request council delete the words in order of priority. So the selection criteria remain, but the priority for considering those, the road name is not listed. It's A, B, C, D, and E.
Can I just ask why? Can I just ask why?
Why they made that
Why
decision?
you'd be changing it in order of priority? Is that because A, B, C, D, E, is that what the priority is there, or is it just in order of priority?
They didn't see a need for a priority for those selection criteria. That's the way I understand it.
So in terms of alignment with our, in terms of alignment with the significance of naming these roads, by having it in there in order of priority, a traditional or appropriate Māori name, which is approved by Kiwi in Hauraki, does that not still allow other significance to be considered as elected as it is, other significance to override that? In fact, it was felt that in fact that significance was greater than what the Māori name might be. In other words, there'd be horses for courses, so I don't see the reason why that needs to be changed. That's my own personal view. But anyway, yep.
That's my opinion too. I think that it's obvious that, a historical event associated with this location at the moment is number D. So that's something that colonisation might have done, and suddenly we want to call it Captain Cook Drive, for example, and the Aotearoa that I live in right now would have a different name than Captain Cook Drive. And I will be fighting for a traditional or appropriate Maori name to be prioritised over a colonisation name.
Kia ora, Sally. I have a question about, you said very diplomatically, Bruce, that some of the other boards had raised. Is this something that all 4 of the boards have raised? Is it one and you're just trying to be nice and not name and shame them? Like, please,
No,
let's be honest.
All the boards have looked at this issue and have resolved in their resolution to seek the deletion of those words that was a priority.
Right, so we see the exception to the rule, no problem.
No, I don't see a problem with that, but this is finally, the policy ultimately goes to council, the council to approve. And those comments will be provided to council.
Exactly.
So what you're saying is that when you went out to the other boards and the one board said we want to remove these words, and then as you've gone to the next ones, you've told them what that board wants to do, which is just exactly what you've done here this morning. Tell us about what they want to do as well. So I just wonder, are they just, like following suit? Do they actually understand what it is that they're doing?
I can't answer that. That's up to the boards to make up their own decision.
Yeah, I feel like we could all have a lot of fun watching the YouTube videos of the meeting.
Absolutely.
Party at my house.
Yeah, just sort of moving away. I agree with other comments that have been made around the not removing that priority. But I just wonder, in the objective on the first on the start of pay attachment A, the third objective says tangata whenua are consulted when a Māori road name is proposed. So does that mean that they're not consulted if it's a non-Māori name?
Of course.
That would be my understanding of the situation, yes, but that doesn't stop a consultation occurring with tangata whenua when you're proposing to use a non-Māori name. It's up to the developer that generally provides the names for the proposed roads.
Yeah, I guess that's a. Yeah, I mean, I guess there's situations where it might be a brand new road that the council putting in that might not have, might not be like a subdivision type thing. It might be let's say, a different way to get from A to B. Then it would be more council saying, okay, this is what we're thinking road name wise, but going out to consult. But I'm just concerned that that's saying that they only consulted when a Maori road name was proposed.
The specific purpose of that objective is if the a Maori road name is proposed, then you do consult to make sure that it is appropriate for that location.
And I guess also I'm sort of thinking that because it would be like, well, who's proposing it? Because often it seems that we are going out and consulting, saying, hey, we think we want to do this. This is the option. What do you think? As opposed to a more, we've got this new road, and actually going out and asking first, rather than us or planners or whatever coming up with a name. I don't know.
That's fully in the hands of the developer, who's testing roads with council to adopt the process that they consider the best practice for talking with Tanga Whenua.
Yeah, I can understand that.
So this will go back to council pre the elections. You'll be tidying this up. Is this a decision that will be clarified and made and sorted by the end of our term?
Yes, that's
plan.
what I intend to do. The September meeting was targeted to have this on the order paper.
Well, for me, as a Thames Community Board person, I don't want the prioritisation. I think it gives the lead to which way we should be going in this country, and we'll leave it at that, and then we'll have another discussion about it at the council.
Right, so the resolution is agreed. We could have a mover and seconder for that would include that wording, wouldn't it?
Can we get that on that wording?
Well, the resolution just says to receive the report. So if we're receiving it as it is, we don't need to make any changes at all. But we've heard your backing strongly as a community board that we fight to have that kept in.
Yep, so maybe you need to just note that.
I think, yeah.
And no doubt the council will speak to it.
Yes,
Those
yes.
differences are. So that's fine, let's move and second it.
Yes.
Robin,
Yes.
Sheree, those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? Excellent.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
You know, what will be the name?
We can put that the board does not want to go. I'm really removed.
Yeah. Taking out. As other boards are.
Okay.
Love to be the point of difference.
Yeah, we've got Eamon online, so we're going to do the shoreline management item and then have a break.
Yeah. Kia ora koutou. Yeah, the report's there, so take that as read. Just one.
Yep.
Yes, I was talking.
So I just take the opportunity to highlight two areas, if it's agreeable to the committee, the Thames area and the Monotari area, just to ensure there's an understanding of the pathway and the hazards and the process that we've undertaken there. So any objections or agreements for me to highlight those two areas?
Yeah, Eamon, it'd be really wonderful if you could just take out a couple of the Thames cases, the pathways, and explain them to the board and your interpretation of them. It'd be really wonderful if we fully understood that. Not that we don't, we look at it, but we just sort of would like to hear what you have to say about it, so we can read it as well. Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll share my screen and I'll start with Teams. Hopefully you can see that. Okay.
Yeah.
So the first thing I wanted to do is, from current slide, just leave it there. It's just highlight that Thames does have significant hazard now. The blue areas are the areas that are shown in the current event, in a current 100-year event, which is on the left, and a 20-year event, which is on the right. And if you add increments of sea level rise, then the event becomes deeper or more hazardous. Just because it's blue doesn't mean everything under it will get significantly damaged. It's just indicating that it's getting wet, but the more sea level rise you have, the more damage you're likely to get. Moving forward to the pathways, so the work that we did with the community board to start with mostly focused on the threshold, and so that's the point that we don't think is acceptable, the point we don't want to get to because there's an unacceptable hazard. In this case, it's 0.2 meters of sea level rise, and so you can kind of think back to those maps. And you can say with Thames inundated, you're going to have an additional depth of 0.2 meters of sea level rise. Therefore, what can we do to reduce that hazard before it gets to that unacceptable threshold? And in the Thames instance, we're advocating for protection. So this protection is long term, heading out to 100 years. But we're also advocating that protection isn't required all at once, and it would need to be done in an incremental way. And the challenge there is we haven't done all the detailed design in terms of incremental protection, but that would be seen as one of the next key steps, and one that would be more of a priority because of than others, because of the hazard and the time that it would take to implement such a mitigation as well. So probably just pause there to see if there's any questions on Thames specifically.
Yes. Allow some other people to speak first, please.
So can we just check everyone online, because we can hear background noise? Everyone online, it's not online. Oh, the name of office.
Right. Hang on, just a couple of questions, if that's all right.
Yep.
In terms of just some of the areas that we wish to develop in the future, like Road Park, for example, the Airfield South Lane. At the moment, the adaptation pathway for that is, as you've got on the screen here, is that correct? That it has a 100-year, at least 100-year protection cycle in terms of what might be an adaptive pathway. In other words, I've pulled out.
You're on mute.
A future site that is being proposed for our recreational development, and wanting to know that in fact that site, according to the adaptation pathways that have been developed, is okay.
Yes, the Thames Airfield site has a protection the same as Thames, the one that I've just shown, with the obvious exception that there is already protection in place, but we're advocating for that to be extended out through to 100 years. It's probably less challenging than Thames in that it's already got protection existing, and so it's a matter of maintaining and topping up the existing protection.
That's excellent. Thanks, Ayalana. Just ensuring that those are the issues. In terms of Rhodes Park itself, the existing Rhodes Park, can I ask whether in fact that's now going to be a floodplain and it doesn't have that same protection, or?
Designated already floodplain, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct with Rhodes Park. We're not advocating or able to protect Rhodes Park in the same way, largely because it's a spillway, and so it's designed to flood. But also, as the sea level rise starts to impact, at 0.4 meters, the state highway will actually become flooded in a king tide event. So that's 0.4. It's a fair way down the track. So that's the road. So we are advocating for that road to be maintained and to allow access into Thames. But for Roads Park specifically, that's 0.2. You'll start getting Roads Park flooded in a king tide event. So that's half a dozen times a year. That's not a significant flood event. That's ongoing periodic flooding, which makes maintaining the sports field quite difficult.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thanks, John.
Therese?
So, can I just ask Amon, the new south of the airfield, the defence areas regional council in the stop bank?
Yes, that's correct.
And so they're talking about incremental increases over a period of time?
Yes, that's what we're advocating, and that's the policy of regional council is to review the design standard or the required standard and then apply the required upgrades. That at the moment is done on a relatively short period, so they are only looking out 10, 20 years when they do their reviews, and so they haven't to date looked out 100 years to say exactly what they'll do in terms of their infrastructure. So we've largely done that, and through the community are advocating for them to maintain that out to 100 years, maintain that current level of service.
Yeah.
Thanks, Amon. Are there any other questions, Martin?
Yeah, hi, Amon. I just have a question around some of the wording in the strategy on the third page, just looking at the Kōpū one. So it talks about maintain the existing flood protection to WRC's existing level of service. But then it says it's proposed that where appropriate, land should be raised, the height of the existing defences increased in advance. But then it says the latter will be delivered by WRC in line with their normal operating practices. But I just wonder, is their normal operating practices to deliver something in advance? I'm just a little bit confused by the use of that existing defences increased in advance.
Thank you. Yeah, it's appropriate to have existing practices. Their approach in terms of advance probably, and it's not clear on the strategy, but brings in the freeboard that's applied. So they're actually raising and maintaining the level of the stop bank before 100-year event will overtop it. So there's an advance aspect in terms of the freeboard that they provide, but I can kind of take that comment as something that needs a bit more clarity in what we've got in the strategy.
Yeah, thank you.
While you're there too, Amon, could you just drive on the screen the Monotari case, and just give a similar explanation for that hotspot? That would be really good.
Yeah, sure. So the map you can see is Monotari. At the moment, if there's a 1 in 100-year flood event, it's protected and it's not expected to be inundated. However, once you get to 0.2 and over, you'll start to get inundation of Monotari. It's worth noting that when we say Monotari would be inundated, there are higher areas in Monotari and lower areas, so that the school probably stands out as the higher area, so the inundation wouldn't happen there until probably 0.8 metres. So there's a bit more time when we're talking about the school. Then when you skip to the pathway, I guess there's an element of needing to maintain what's there, but recognising that we're not advocating for long-term protection out to 100 years. The threshold that we've identified is 0.4 metres, and so we're needing to think about and plan for relocation to avoid getting to that 0.4 metres of inundation. So that's Monotari, so quite different from Thames in terms of not one we're advocating protecting for the long term, but we are advocating for maintaining the existing protection.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, no, that calls into relevance for our board as well. So, and I've just got one more question. There's a couple of little hotspots seem to have been noted recently, and that was it was Richmond Villas, Airfield, Richmond Villas corner. What's the wording on that in terms of the adaptive plan that we've got at the moment?
So that's covered by the broader Thames pathway. So that would be looking to protect Thames as well. Probably that I mentioned it, but just to highlight, we haven't done the detailed design of how we're going to protect Thames. So Danby Field's a low spot, so whether there would be some outlet or pumps required in the short term, or if that's a long-term thing, that would be part of the detailed design.
It's interesting because I see Western Villas are doing a little development with another unit right on that corner spot as I walk around. And I thought to myself, oh, gee, you know, I'm not sure about that, you know, because of that low lying Danby Field area. But anyway, yes, that explains it.
Is it a floodplain as well, or spillway? No.
No.
It has quite good stop banks, doesn't it? Because it doesn't have most like that out there on that side of Danby.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the future of that big part there is the razor, isn't it? And it's quite a design, you know, the long-term one.
There's something similar to the other one, incremental increases.
So that's really excellent. Is there any further questions or?
Yeah, just so in the public meetings that we had in Thames, there was significant discussion around the ground sinking, and obviously we've got that Tonkin and Taylor report due shortly. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct. So we're currently scoping the requirements for that Tonkin and Taylor work. So that will include survey of the Monotari wall or protection structure and locations within Monotari, and that will help us understand better how if it's sinking or how fast it's sinking, and if we need what we need to do to maintain it. The slide that I've brought up is the latest stuff from the NZ Sea Rise, and so it does indicate a variance across Thames, and you can see Monotari at the top. The green areas are the areas that are shown as going down slightly, and Toyota factory as well. Anything that's orange or red are the areas that are shown as going up. So it's a tricky aspect to discuss because you can't generalize it too much. You can't say Thames is going up or Thames is going down. You have to really dig into some of the detail, and that's what we're doing through the Tonkin and Taylor report, getting site-specific information from Monotari.
So sorry, follow-up question. So is there provision within the SMP to have that included in the risk table? Because at the moment, the risk table on page 2 of that particular one only talks about erosion and inundation. Is there some provision to be able to have that information from Tonkin and Taylor included in this?
What area are you referring to there?
the Moana Taieri one.
So the risks relate to erosion and inundation. The Tonkin and Taylor report helps us understand the inundation risk better. So it's not a new hazard. So I'm not.
Okay.
Maybe there's something else or a different way, or I'm misinterpreting what you're meaning, perhaps.
Amon, would it be helpful to talk about the relative sea level rise in a place like Moana Taieri?
Yes, thank you. So the triggers, and let me go to an example. So the in the Thames line, you've got 0.2 of a meter as a threshold. Often you have a trigger and you have sea level rise that leads through to that trigger. And so what we're advocating or putting into the strategy, it's an amendment in some cases, is to have relative sea level rise. And so that relative sea level rise is relative to vertical land movement. That's interesting in itself, because then you have to be quite specific or understand which part of the vertical land movement is most important. And so for Moana Taieri, you can see for Moana Taieri, it's likely to be the protection structure. For Thames, you can see areas in the hills that are going up significantly. So we wouldn't be doing our relative sea level rise to the hills, but it's something that will be factored in, that relative sea level rise. And by doing that, we include the vertical land movement aspect.
Okay, thank you.
Eamon, there was a present, I think somebody turned up at the audit committee, was the 10, wasn't it? The 10 economists who I have a very high regard for in terms of her views or her opinions. And it would take a lot for her to turn up and do something that she thought otherwise. And I think it's related to, was it Richmond Villas and somewhere else, I'm not sure. But anyway, the specifics of it, have, our adaptive plans satisfied those comments at this point, or in terms of what you had to feed back to them?
Yeah, so what we've done is present the full range of information to the coastal panels and talk through the implications. And so, like I've explained, there's variations in Thames, and we've talked about that with the coastal panels. What we haven't done is take some of the worst points and extrapolate them out to paint a picture of sea level rise going up significantly faster, nor have we taken the best points and extrapolated it to show sea level rise not going up at all. So we didn't feel that extrapolation could be done without some misinterpretation. So the difference, I suppose, is we haven't extrapolated, but we've recognised that there's a vertical land movement aspect that needs to be monitored and is included in our triggers. So that's probably the difference, is we haven't extrapolated out the vertical land movement. You could, but because there's so many different points and so many different ups and downs, it can be misleading.
Could that be subject to a similar report from Tonkin's Taylor that you're doing for Moana Taieri in terms of those little hotspots that have been noted by, I understand, Katina and our member for WRC? And has WRC been, have they been leading the process in any way? I mean, I've always said right from the outset that WRC should be directly leading the process to some extent.
WRC has been leading in terms of the technical information and peer reviewing technical aspects. So they're not on the governance, as you know, but they're very much part of the technical advisory group and helping with peer reviewing hazard information and how we address vertical land movement as well. That's at a staff level, not at a council level.
Okay. Thanks for that. Appreciate it. Now, Rose, I'd just like to ask something, Eamon.
Just before you go, Eamon, I just wanted to acknowledge the invitation you received to present at the International Conference in Singapore. On behalf of the board, it's great that you were able to raise awareness about this project. It is a community, the community has been very much involved in the coastal panels, and we are an area that has many challenges in the future. And so the forward planning has been at the forefront, and it's great that you had the opportunity to raise awareness about this project on an international scale. Well done.
Thanks for that, Rose. Well done. Indeed, Eamon. Yep.
And
Thanks.
I'd just like to add, Amon, that as somebody who's retiring from public governance life, I think that this has been, you're at an excellent point for the new administration, both at governance and management, to look at this, because we've got the information now, and there's now another huge piece of work around how, when, who's going to pay, that kind of thing. So just acknowledging that I think you've come to a point at a very timely time, and acknowledge all the work and the people that sit beside you and around you and behind you, and wish you luck in this next bit, because if we've thought this is hard, I will be sitting up in Regent Heights having a gin and looking with most interest at the next bit, because it's going to be extra hard when it comes to the money. But so not wanting to be negative, really positive about we're here, and now we have to get really clever in terms of our relationships going forward.
Thanks, Al.
Yeah, and I'd like to share those congratulations to Avon. You've taken on one of the most difficult tasks that this council's ever had to experience. And, from all points, you've led it with great leadership and style, and what's coming out of it, as you've said, so we're in a great space right now to work forward. So well done. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and I think I do have to just make one comment before I do, acknowledging all those that have worked alongside me, Jamie Boyle over the last year and a half, but the coastal panels and the coastal community as well. Lots of hours that they've all put in, and I think we'll be meeting in a week or so together, which will be fantastic. But I appreciate all those kind words. Thank you very much.
All right. Any other comments anyone else would like to make? Peter, are you all happy up there?
I'm always happy, Strat. Always happy.
Always happy. That's the one. Thanks for everybody's input in terms of council input as well, from Peter and Marie, and much appreciated. The more direct input, and everybody that's been involved. So,
I'll move the resolution.
Yep.
I'll second the resolution.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eamon.
Thank you, Jet. Right.
All those in favour?
Oh,
Right.
Against? Just remind me about that.
Okay.
Yeah, we are, yeah. I don't know, 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Andrew, we're just having a break for 10 minutes and then we'll.
No problem, and so will I.
Nice to meet you. Better. Yeah, Laura will be here in a minute and she'll present the report.
Oh, okay.
We'll sort of go from there. Is that all right?
Just around.
There's not.
Oh, yeah. Morning, Andrew. Morning, board. I'm good, thank you. So I'll take the report as read, but apologies that it has come as a late item. We were waiting just for DIA
to get a provisional approval for the 4.05 million, which you'll see in the attachment we have been given. So now it's very much procedural with DIA. We will get an official confirmation in August, but it's just going through the process now, the due diligence. The other things I just wanted to signpost is that we have been in discussions with MB about the $1 million. They put a briefing note to the ministers, and because Parliament's in recess for 3 weeks and they don't resume until mid-August, there will be some delay in whether we in processing that. What we also have signposted as well is if that money from from MB for that 1 million isn't forthcoming, there are some other external funding options that we can pursue. We have been in discussions with Waikato Regional Council with their Regional Infrastructure Fund, Regional Economic Development Fund. They've got about $4 million still unallocated, and we can apply for that as a 3-month process. And also there is Trust Waikato. They have another infrastructure fund that opens in August, and there is several $1 million in that as well. So there is other options, but to actually start the build, we need to start signing contracts, and we can't sign a contract if there is a known shortfall. So we do need to have some backup as to if the worst case scenario, how that 1.13 could be sourced. I've got Lorenzo here from Urban Solutions. Thank you very much. A little bit probably about just where you're at with the contracts and things like that.
In terms of the mechanics of the contracts, we've had Herons and Fulton Hogan's preferred tenderers of some time, like over a year. That's all right. We've got a letter of intent with them saying we're going to keep in communication with you and keep you updated, which we have. So they have they've kept their resources alive. We also we've been through a couple of 2 or 3 different repricings based on all the various scenarios we've gone through. Now we're back to the full scheme, which fortunately we got the full scheme repriced on the submissions on the 31st of March. Early, 3.5 months ago. That was used for the updated figures in terms of the budget figures we reported last time. So in those, understandably, inflation was taken off. So they've just tagged a few items: diesel price, bitumen, steel mainly, and as we all know, the last quarter the inflation is about running on average 7%. Fuel has increased. So to get a clean award, to know what the latest prices are, including that, we've worked with we've asked Herons and Fulton Hogan's to update those prices and justify them, so we can get all that sorted out now. It's going to take the next few days to get that done. It's not going to be 7% because it's the fuel and the bitumen and the steel is part of the overall scheme. It doesn't work like that. So once I get those, then I know the exact figure. That will chew into the 20% contingency that we put aside. In terms of the most important thing, the most important thing is to make sure and I've got verbal confirmation from the owners and chief executives of those 2 companies that they've got the resources and they're committed to the project, because especially with the marina project, it's quite specialist, and they're relying on a massive piling barge. There's only one in sort of New Zealand, let alone Australasia. So that's being they've won a big job up in Tonga in the future, and that's really that's being reallocated around about sort of March, April 2023 to the islands. So we want to squeeze. They've squeezed the barge in to do the works from the riverside in January, February, March for us. Then what that means, working backwards, and my project manager hat on, is I've got to get the steel ordered from China to de-risk it. So steel takes about usually takes about 3 months to get here. With the COVID risks and everything else, the video took 4.5 months. We managed to go to Shanghai just as they had the lockdowns. So what does all that mean? It means that I've been putting pressure on Lorna to actually, we need to really get these things that we ordered quite soon. So I do appreciate all the work that's going to go in.
We've written for the leadership team, we've written quite extensive supply recommendation report linking back the tendering process, what the results are there, and then the timeline and the negotiations and where we've got to and where the funding sources are. So where the funding sources are, we're going to make sure that we've got enough money in place to be able to award contracts. And this is the last piece. So after this meeting, I'll update the leadership team with exactly where we're at with the negotiations. So we should be in a position to actually get delegations from senior management and award the contracts as early as early next week if we have time.
So then we've got the second drawdown from MB of the contract. So we've got money plus the DIA money coming in. So that will get the construction started. So it's just this shortfall of the 1.13 will be, as we said, towards the end of the project, and it will come back to the Thames Community Board if there is no other sources that we've been able to obtain to request an out-of-cycle budget.
That's excellent, I think. Yeah. So obviously what's online is, as part of the resolution that you have is the appropriate resolution.
Yep.
I guess it comes with some of those concerns I expressed while we're having a cup of tea, not from the point of view of not committing to this project. We are committing and totally committed because it's such an incredible economic development opportunity for Thames and Kōpū. Just more from the point of view that our community, that's Thames, has had to use the trench money, has had to use Tuggerah, potentially might have to use some extra funding. But it sounds hopeful that in fact, we'll get a little bit of significant money from WRC or from MB come through, the whole scenario. And it's just because of the way the dice has rolled, since during the project of this huge inflationary aspects relating to what's going on, the escalation of prices and stuff like that. Couldn't have been done any quicker. You guys have done an amazing job. But from a Thames sitting point of view, I always think to myself, well, that's some of our well-being money that's going towards this project, and we've got a swimming pool on the roads, parks, and so on and so on. So that sort of things haven't been said. And I just sort of think, well, maybe, this is where future councils have to really lobby hard, and I mean really lobby hard for further trench money, in terms of the resident versus non-resident targets for our region. Because at the moment, the money is being based on a residential component as opposed to a 50% non-residential component. And we've got to actually build all this capacity for the visitors and not only the non-residents and the residents, but everybody. So it just doesn't sit comfortable. And I think areas like ours that have a high non-resident population need to argue that point a lot more strongly, and hopefully something will come through it in the future. So I'm sure the future council will be working really hard. So we have a resolution. Is there any further discussion for the project? Yes, mate.
Yeah, while I get the points around the, yes, we're spending money that could potentially go for other wellbeing projects. My sort of thought is, well, this is so close to the line to get done. It's all approved. There's literally people, standing out there with shovels waiting to go, hopefully, and
actually. Right.
And like you're saying, the availability of the barge to make the piles with the costs of things going up. I think we'd be doing a big disservice to Thames if we don't if we don't push this through.
I think it's really important to realise that that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm just saying that.
Yeah.
The position statement is not the most abnormal.
So I'll move it.
Move it.
I'll second it.
Seconder? Okay, so we're all onwards, and those in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Against?
Well done.
So I'll
Well
get
done,
on.
Lorna.
Yeah, go for it. Get those guppies out.
I've got a
Very challenging projects, but all well that ends well, I say.
Yeah.
got a trailer you can use.
Team, the whole team is actually, including the contractor, fully committed, and I believe in them.
Yeah.
It made a big difference to get the full.
Andrew, did you want to add any comments there?
No,
Sorry.
No.
Peter?
No, I'm all good.
All good, Peter. Sorry, I didn't get back to you there. We are now.
I believe they're going on holiday to August.
Yeah.
Competitions.
Yep.
Thames Community Board work program.
yep,
Page 38 and 39 of your agenda. Andrew, is that you presenting that one, I think, isn't it?
yes, it is.
Yes, thank you.
Strat. Yeah, thanks. Any questions?
Yes, Robin, I was just looking at something.
I'm no hurry, Strat. I've got all day. So,
You got all day?
I do.
I haven't.
Oh.
It's all good.
But I like hanging out with you. I want all day. No, thanks. Hi, Andrew. On page 2 of the actual action schedule, there's the Thames
Oh,
Reserve.
the
car
action, just wait, the action schedule. Okay.
park. Isn't that what we're talking about?
No, we're talking
Well,
about,
I was talking about the work
Oh,
program.
yeah. Sorry. No, I'm with you. I said action schedule, but I do mean work program. My apologies. That was me. So we talked about the Thames car park, reserve car park reseals. And the comments at the 6th of July were that the car park resealing tender was rejected as the price was unaffordable, and we're going to
Correct.
defer that.
Yes.
So but presumably, if it was unaffordable now, it's going to be unaffordable if we defer it. So we're going to have to increase the budget on that too.
Possibly, or there's no money in the LTP this year for any car park reseals, and we may need to rationalise. This is an issue that spreads across all the wards, so everywhere. So we're going to start looking at these and seeing if we can rationalise them. It would not be my preference to come back to the board or council for more money, but I will, when my first opportunity, I'll sit down with Pinnacles and say, right, now, what are we going to do? So it's still a bit in abeyance, but we'll look at it first of all to try and maintain the budget that we've got to do what we think we can do, and that's across all the wards. So, in other words, Robin, we might find that we don't need to do much in Whitianga or Whangamata, and that money can be brought across and used. But unfortunately, the budget is split up in wards, so we have to be a bit careful in that regard.
All bananas. Thank you.
Thank you. No problem.
Just one little question, is the Tucker Valley extensions?
Yeah.
Some of that stage 2 and 3, like land negotiations, ongoing contract documents, they've been finalised, haven't they?
Yeah. Well, just as a reminder, Mr. Chairman, the Tortora Valley and Ngāti Maru Highway intersection is a project that, because of delays from Chorus and Powerco, will only restart in October, and also because of the weather as well. And now, at the moment, we have a group of people who are planners who are carrying out the designation process for the road. That is current at the moment, Strat, and as soon as that is finalised, and that won't be for a few months yet, we'll start to plan the work and complete the negotiations with the property owners that abut the Torture Valley Road at the moment. I think there's about 12 of them, and so far so good. But in earnest, that work has still got to happen.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Strat?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I was thinking more in reference to the actual farm area that's going to be subdivided, and that seems to have been, that contract seems to have been completed now. So
That has, and the developer who bought the land from Kirsten is highly delighted at what's happened. So I think we've passed that stage, and we're more concentrating now on the road itself. And the design is quite advanced. And along the way, because we are widening the road, we have I can only describe them as slivers of private land that we're going to need to buy or negotiate with. And having the road with a designation is essential, absolutely essential, so that we don't get taken advantage of when we complete the negotiations with the property owners. At the moment, so far, I don't believe, and I'm open to correction on this, that we've received a lot of negative feedback from the owners on the first call, first tranche of discussions. But as you probably know better than I do, that can change.
indeed it can, but that's a good first step.
Yeah. I think we are time spent at the moment is we're definitely moving on with a designation process that unfortunately takes time.
No, that's excellent. Exciting for Thames, that's all I can say.
I think so too. I think it's essential. And I think we'll look back in 1 or 2 years' time and say all that time spent planning what we need to do with the right resources that we've employed to do that will be money very well spent.
Excellent. Any further questions? Anyone? No. The spatial planning, that report that's going to go to council in August, is it?
I believe so.
Oh, sorry, that's the next report. Okay. No, we're all good.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, move and second. Sheree. Robert. Those in favour?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
So we have that on.
So that's capital project. Now we're on to action schedules.
I think that's what, oh, sorry, bottom. Yeah, it's at the bottom. Oh, that's it. Okay. Really short minutes report. We do get things. Yeah, but I want to thank you for doing that.
So the action schedule, 6.1, which is page, whatever it is, for your agenda.
45.
So today's action schedule provides an update on the Thames and Surround Spatial Plan, Shoreline Management Plan, the Animal Plan, and then two projects, community projects. So firstly, in regard to the Thames and Surround Spatial Plan, you recall that we received a presentation from Mitch about a month ago to provide an update on how he's going with that. He is going to be presenting a report to council, and that's scheduled for August. The Shoreline Management Plan, we heard from Amon, so we're all up to speed on that one.
Just through the chair, we're talking about the other information updates on the work program, not the action schedule. That's what Rose is speaking to.
Yes. So we're on page 43
Oh, right.
of the agenda.
Yeah, my apologies. I've got all that now. I must be looking forward to my exit.
It's easy to do, Strat.
Okay, right, yeah.
Okay, the next one's the annual plan. So just there's a couple of bullet points there in terms of the items that the Thames Community Board submitted on and what the outcome was for those items. The installation of the James.
Can I just ask a question there, Rose? Have we got a date for when we're starting on Taipuri Park?
No, I haven't had a chance yet to catch up with Derek on that, but it is scheduled for this year.
Okay, thank you.
22, 23, so I'll get an update for next time.
Thank you.
Yep.
And installation of the J. Hogan sculpture. So the information there under action plan for the next period, that's out of date now just because of the timing when the report was completed. So that's already been achieved. So the engineer has reviewed the design for the, and last week Matthew Allnut was speaking with the representatives from the Thames Public Art Trust about the traffic management and how that's going to work. So they're getting closer. The Hauraki rail trail sculptures. So there are 3 sculptures altogether, but 2 of them are proposed for a strip of rail trail that is managed by a council under a licence to occupy. The other sculpture is proposed to be located on an area that is managed by the Hauraki Rail Trail Trust and is leased by Hauraki District Council. So the 2 that we're talking about here are Interwoven and the Miners' Gates. And Matthew Allnut is preparing a report to bring to you to seek approval for the locations and also for you to consider the gifting of those from the Thames Public Art Trust to council. So that would mean in the short term, it would mean probably not much once they're installed, but longer term, they might be painting or sanding or the Miners' Gates is wooden, Interwoven is my understanding metal. So
That's an excellent outcome, Phil.
So just to clarify, Rose, does that mean that there is still some approval needs to come from the community board before these things can go into place?
No. Yeah, so the process is that the board provides approval and considers the gifting, and then that, because there's a financial obligation long term on the gifting, that will need to be considered by council. I assume it's just via the minutes.
And will that be coming to the next community board meeting?
In terms of the timing, Matthew hasn't confirmed, but I know he is working on it. So, yeah.
Could I request that it comes to the next community board meeting then, please?
I'll pass it on, Peter. Yes.
So if the sculptures are gifted to us, I remember when what feels like about 1 million years ago when we were talking about the hurricane statue, even though that's the ownership has been retained by the Sir Keith Park Memorial gentleman. Does that mean that the liability insurance then is also covered by council? The sculptures have been given to us. Okay, so that would be part of the report that we received, so that we.
The insurance costs will be covered by rates because it's ongoing.
Yeah, sure. Yes, but it would be useful to know what that was.
Oh, yeah, right. It's Matthews.
He's on top of it?
Yeah.
Sweet.
So the Smithers statue down on the other end, on the reserve, who looks after that? Did we get that gifted to us, or is that still no person's land?
You mean at the dog?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that one is owned by council, and you recall it got uplifted and it cost $11,000 to rent. That's how our insurance covered that. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, you need to be aware of what the implications are.
Yeah.
Hauraki District Council aren't interested in owning sculptures, so that's their position, and neither is the Hauraki Rail Trail Trust. So the Thames Public Art Trust will own Hauraki Directions.
And I believe with that Smithers one, it was that 11,000, I guess if it had been put in correctly in the first place, I don't mean to, diss the people who put it in, then, we wouldn't have been having to look at that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Which is kind of why, even though this is taking a while, at least we know that if we're getting sign off on the plinths, we're getting sign off from engineers about the strength and safety of it. We know that we're all covered with that. But I suspect, having seen the timbers that the miners' gate is made out of, I suspect it'll be minimal maintenance because they're huge, big timbers and they'll outlive most of us, I would think.
Yeah, my understanding is that I've only seen photos, so it looks like railway sleepers.
Yeah, I'm not criticising. All I'm saying is it's really good to be super clear so that in 10 years' time, when something does happen, and that's where you come in, there's a chain of evidence that shows who's responsible, because we spend a lot of time here debating who's responsible and who's not.
Agreed. While we're discussing the Thames Public Art Trust, there was some discussion that the Kevin McCracken statue that's currently at Mary Street would be a temporary installation. Have they ever mentioned?
Yeah.
I saw on there. When you talk to them.
The issue, the challenge is it was placed there with no future plan.
Yes.
So it's still there.
I know, and it was temporary.
Yes.
So,
On loan.
with all these items that come to you, it's really important that we think about, okay, so who owns it, who maintains it, how long is it there for, what is the plan? So with Jay Hogan, that is all in place.
Yeah.
With the Hauraki rail trail sculptures, we're getting it in place.
Yeah.
And with the cracker,
Appreciate that.
we can move it anytime we want. No,
We don't own it.
Well,
yeah, but it's sitting.
we don't own it, and so the Thames Public Art Trust is asking us what we want to do with it. And so my comment is, well, we don't own it, you own it. You placed it there. So yeah, there's more discussion to be had.
That was the plan. It
Yeah.
didn't change. Yeah. Okay, no, that's cool. I just
We're going to do.
Okay.
just while we were talking next.
Well, I think that the benefits are a no-brainer, so I think Thames Community Board should take ownership of it. That's my view. But in terms of Peter's comments, like, is it possible to have a presentation? Ask staff to actually have a report to us in the next.
I'll find out from Matthew or not.
Please, do you want to make a formal request of staff to have a report by the next meeting? I would like to see that in terms of those two sculptures. Interwoven and
Okay, there would need to be in the resolution. It would need to be in either our action schedule or the resolutions.
Is it reasonable to ask that? Is it reasonable to ask that?
Yes, reasonable time.
Thank you.
Is this an opportunity to ask about other information or to bring up a point that I'm worried about or not?
I did.
If anything on the report,
It's not.
yes. If not, it's probably better to bring it up with me.
Outside of the meeting? Oh. Thank
And
you.
that concludes the report for this month.
I move that we receive that. Thank you.
Did that.
Oh, already done. Sorry.
It's already been moved, we've just, lived off your comments. Thank you, so everyone's in favour of that. Anyone against? Thank you. The next item is the action schedule, is that right? Are you presenting that one, right? The action schedule?
That's just one. And the next one is the
Is the action schedule?
My Jenna's name is at the top.
There's a few items that have been closed, and that was in result of discussion with Rose and Dean. So if you have any questions or comments, please let us know.
Any further comments from the board? Peter, you're all right with that? The action schedule?
Yeah, no, nothing from me on that.
Awesome. Anyone else? So, mover and seconder.
I'll move it.
Any negative comments, anyone?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Second,
Oh, sure, we moved in, I seconded it.
sure. Or Stratos.
That's right here.
Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Where are we, members reports, are we?
Yes.
Is that where we're at? Members reports. Shall we go around briefly? Anyone's got any? Let's go without saying their members.
I haven't got anything, no.
Right, so I found out about the Grahamstown businesses having a meeting, and I asked if I could go along, and they said I could. It was very interesting. They were talking a lot about trying to retain the heritage of the Grahamstown area, but still trying to keep the, and I don't use this term derogatorily, keeping the sort of slightly wacky, weird, a bit unusual aspect of the Grahamstown businesses, because they feel that that's what's getting people from out of the area to come there. It's not just a, turn up at the base to, do all your box type retailer thing. It's something that's different and it's unique. They also talked about a report that was done, I think it was called something like Future Grahamstown, which was done a few years ago, which apparently is sitting around probably somewhere on a council shelf. There was also some discussion around the Martha Street footpath and how bad that is. So I'm going to be following that up. I've also had some positive feedback about our new single charge for retrofitting injected exterior wall insulation. Several people have commented on how happy they are that it's now just going to be a flat fee, which is great. I attended the candidate information meeting in Thames with some interesting people there. I got bailed up by a couple of folks with some views, and obviously lots of interest in local body elections with I get a steady number of queries saying, oh, have you heard so-and-so standing for mayor? Have you heard this? Have you heard that? And yeah, I think my count at the moment is, if all these rumours are true, I think there's going to be about 12 people standing for mayor, which could make quite an interesting election. Another thing that I found out at the Grahamstown business meeting is that people are, couple of the young folk from the Lotus realm are developing the old Wiseman's workshop, which is opposite the Workmen's Club, developing that into a venue type safe space for people to go to, and that sort of fits in quite well with what I'm hearing is people want somewhere to go to in town that's not necessarily just a bar or restaurant, but it's a place, maybe they have a mocktail, they have a dessert, they listen to some music. So yeah, I'm going to be keeping an eye on how that's all happening. I also went along and helped out with the Glow Show. There's a puppet performance, 2 performances on at the Civic with UV lights and a black stage, and Creative Coromandel gave a little bit of a grant to help that happen. That was really amazing. And yeah, generally there's been a big uptake in the number of bookings happening at the Civic. It certainly sort of seems like all those events that have been cancelled in the last couple of years are all coming back online. So that's very exciting to see. And that's all I have.
Excellent, thanks, Martin. Comments or questions about Martin in terms of this report?
Well, Martin, Peter and I attended the opening of the Taonga Gallery at the museum, which was really lovely. It was good to see there was quite a crowd, which was nice. And yeah, it was a very moving experience, and the gallery is quite exceptional. So if you haven't gone yet, just go. It's just lovely. It was a very a very special thing to be a part of. I caught up with a couple, been very crafty. I caught up with the boomerang bag sewing ladies, who've now got a space at the Seagull Centre in the new, one of the refurbished classrooms that's sort of in the drop-off zone at the Seagull Centre. And so they've got their own dedicated space, which they're loving. Remember last time I went to see them, they had a goal of doing a bag for every resident of Thames, and they're halfway through. So they've been going for 4 years, I think now, and they're halfway, 3,500 bags, which is very, very cool. Every now and again, I see one that I recognise in the wild, and it's very exciting. I went to visit the predominantly ladies who make the blankets for Operation Cover Up, and rashly invited myself to help them do the baling exercise at the Elam Church, which was a lot of fun. And I can now expertly fold any size woven woolen blanket. So it's a skill I'm going to add to my CV. But gosh, it was a very slick operation, and they've been doing it for, I think they said 22 years, and it just, what a phenomenal effort from those ladies. And I mean, no disrespect when I say I think I brought the average age down by about 20 years. So these are, they know their stuff, those women. And finally, I did also attend the Thames South School Matariki Gala, which they held about 10 days ago. You remember that they applied for funding from our last community grants to have a Christmas thing, which they had to put off because of COVID. So they had this Matariki Gala, and it was a really lovely event. It was a lot of fun. There were families there, there were grandparents there, little people, kids from other schools. It was just amazing. And the one thing I will say is that the last time I attended a school gala, the baking quality was not nearly anything as good as the Thames South School baking. So if you ever get the chance to go to a Thames South School gala again, and I will be chatting to them about when they're going to hold the next one, make sure you visit the baking store, because the quality was just absolutely exceptional. So, oh yes. I've spent all my money.
Okay, so I was supposed to attend the opening at Wharitonga or Te Pouaranga. But however, I had a sick child, so I'd like to thank Robin for jumping in and delivering a speech. Awesome. I did have one written, I could have sent it to you, but anyway.
Yeah, thank you.
So yeah, that's it. I also went out to Te Puru Matariki Community Day, which was absolutely nice food, and and there's heaps of people there. I think it gets bigger every year, which is probably pretty special for that community, because it's not now. I don't think it's just Te Puru now. It's like Waiomu. It's a bit of Thornton's, Nauru. I actually think Tapu is coming, as well, because it was a spectacular day. It was like the most beautiful day. Listening Blue Sea, and everybody was eating, and it was all really nice. Absolutely, it was a real community, because it's that school, I think as well. Te Puru School kind of it grabs everybody in that area. I am a judge at the Talent Quest at the Goldfield Mall at the moment. So yesterday we had our first 9 contestants, and just quietly, they were quite cool. Some of them were amazing. So there's again today and tomorrow, and the finals are on Friday. One kid got up to the Rubik's Cube, 57 seconds. Yeah. 57 seconds.
Are they doing lessons?
It was just, I looked at the sheet and I thought, the Rubik's Cube, this was the talent, the Rubik's Cube, but 57 seconds. Thank you.
Thanks, Doreen. Peter?
I'm happy for my report to be as read. If there's any questions, I'm happy to speak to it. Apart from that, nothing to add.
Thank you. Any points you'd like to raise with Peter? Some of these comments?
So just one question. I noticed in there you've got about the Careers Expo. Did we confirm that there was going to be TCDC staff at the expo? I seem to remember there are. Sorry?
I go every year on the face.
Well, it's been cancelled for the last 2 years. Okay, thank you.
All right, everyone else okay? Thanks, Peter. Appreciate it. My report, I would like to just highlight a few points. It's been a little bit of a members' report relating to my time on council. I think just wanted to make the point that one of the reasons why I stood for council in 2004 was that aspect relating to, Thames takes a village to raise a family, and we really felt that for our children when we were growing up. And you probably shared this too, didn't you, Sally? Your own children that other parents actually really looked out for them throughout their life and through their school life, and that became, a big thing. And also looked after me in business and really supported what I was doing. And I felt I had to give back. So that's one of the reasons why I entered council. I've always thought that Thames is an extremely special place, and I quoted in Thames Urban Development Strategy why Thames is a special place with specific qualities that can be best described by the importance of Thames in the history of New Zealand. Thames is located within 1 hour of half of the nation's population. That's between rough, bush and seaside, and that's one of the things about Thames that's so beautiful. This compactness in terms of there and seaside. It offers a compact walking cycle friendly town, because it's so compact. You have that opportunity to have those opportunities within your town. I've always said that the heritage and the beauty, the elements that you referred to, Zoe Williams, your venture garden, are outstanding in terms of Grahamstown, and there is a real destination opportunity, as I might said. I think for all board members going forward, some of those qualities need to be really, really thought about, enhanced, and whilst enhancing, always maintaining that character and amenity value of Grahamstown that you spoke about. You can do that. One of the significant challenges to anyone that goes into council is that expectation, going in there with all sorts of dreams, don't you? And you think, you can change this and change that. But one of the significant challenges for me was acquiring that patience to accept that things would not happen in a hurry. And I just found that really, really hard. While I thought no-brainers, and I did mention the visit destination potential of Grahamstown or creating Thames a walk and cycle friendly space. I didn't say cycle, but it should be in there. Because of its compactness, is a real opportunity. Say that the journey hasn't been interesting. Well, the interesting aspect is I didn't really think about politics. They know best for you, or you know best for them. There's dualities, there's differences that are maintained, and they almost get in the way of some really good things, and they almost got in the way of establishment of the Hauraki rail trail. And I remember when I was first on council in 2004, that debate that went on about the economic viability of the trail, and should we be putting money into this and doing that, and almost was lost. I'm not sure they actually realised that it was. And, we had to fight really hard for those things to happen. When I entered politics, I signed a petition that said no mining. I was going to put my foot through the demarcation line was really important for me there. And it did come back to bite me in the sense of fighting for my right to actually go around the table with the town MLZ stuff. And I remember Simon Berry and even getting an opinion from, I was trying to think of his name, government fellow that was a Labor Prime Minister.
Palmer.
Jeffrey Palmer, that's right. In terms of my rights, and I did what an experience that was. The One Peninsula approach, Thank God and Puru that in fact as we go forward now, free water's infrastructure is not affordable to ratepayers and it's going to have some other thinking and it's going to need some other thinking going forward. And, you know, we almost, some aspects of, you know, the temporary creation of the business, you know, we had to fight hard for that as well. Probably the biggest disappointment for me was the progression of Rose Park, but there have been ground factors relating to that. Why it isn't. Hopefully in the future that will happen. I single out a special person in Murray Dunwoody because I remember down at the tennis club and talking about the Thames urban development strategy and was in sync with John Sinclair, who did the architecture for the archive next to the old building there, the old Carnegie building, and we then adopted Chris Moller as a urban planning consultant to create this document. But I'm not saying it's a prescription, but it's a catalyst to lots of great ideas for Thames. If you can take those great ideas and take them forward, then that would be great. And it's shown that that document didn't further itself as a living document, adapt, and you know, and that council didn't really get in behind the procurement organisation that might have been fantastic to actually put in place to further some of those aspects relating to Thames because it needs private and public buy-in and those sort of things. Pursue those things that loses its momentum to some extent. I feel that's what it's lost, and I think that's a real pity. I see destination management is now picking up on some of the things relating to maximum minimum scenarios for Grahamstown. They see it as a destination opportunity, as long as it doesn't get spoiled. I mean, we don't want that, but at the end of the day, it is a huge destination potential in terms of Cochrane Street, services relating to our history and all those sort of things, and what you could do to enhance that space for destination is remarkable. And so I think we should support their effort to bring that into place going forward. We all have been thrilled with some of the things like the sculpture trail, the murals. For me, that's been exciting for us down the Kōpū marine development, as we've discussed. I like loving to see some more residential housing opportunities for it. Of course, we all are. And the significance of Rose Park for me is huge because I had a sporting life and I was a representative at state level and in some sports, cricket, and sports for me has been, you know, really the heart of having a really connected, belonging and caring community. And I've seen it in my early years coaching cricket and football, you know, rugby, and just the culture that brings, and the culture that my son has enjoyed. The Kōpū Football Club as, you know, winning, you know, just the team aspect of it, in managing the team there, and you know, it is a fantastic culture. I want to see those things happen for teams. Going forward, I really want you to pick up on some of those special qualities of teams that have been highlighted in some documents like tugs and so forth. What else can I say? The local government, Thames Community Board, have been seen over my period in the last 66 years, the erosion of those empowerment opportunities. It's really sad to some extent, but I'm not going to leave here, you know, any regrets. I think but it really is important that the role of community boards, and I think that's going to come more into play as 3Ws what the new structure is going to be. Really important that it's respected, its role is respected, and it better attracts and builds and connects with the many talents in our community. That communication liaison. Funding for the Thames is going to be a key challenge. I've already mentioned that in terms of just some of the money going towards the Kōpū wall, and had to because of the way that dice is rolled and such a critical development for our town. But it does leave us in the future with having to have the challenge of trying to find the money that we need to actually have these sort of race park and body works that way and other wellbeing things that we need as a town for the town to be a good town. That's what they seem to need. So that's really all I have to say. I've just said I've got a few good things to enjoy in my life, maybe around my family and driving off. And that's it, you know. If I had to leave you with anything, is to always respect and be transparent and be expressive as much as you can. What you're doing in life. That's it. Thank you.
Very good, Steve. Very good.
So, is there any other thing?
I'll move that we receive those reports and just acknowledge Strat's one. I'm wondering if you're going to be, you won't be at the next meeting?
Probably, yeah, when it's in August, yeah, that should be fine.
Oh, right, cool.
I've got surgery coming up.
Right, cool.
Community grants.
Okay, cool.
I second that motion, accept the reports.
Very good, thanks, Peter. And, those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Remember that. And that closes our meeting, really, doesn't it? I think there's some lunches.
No, there's some work.
11:30, there's a little bit of last there. Yep. Oh, right.